To start recording. So there's the little note there. But thanks for joining us. It looks like we're starting out with a really intimate group, which is great. We're looking forward to lots of engagement from our participants. My name is Joya Cannell, and I am Vice Chair of Connecticut Green Building Council. Welcome to the third, Connecticut Green Building Council Sustainability Career Showcase for the Finance and Development Panel. Like I said, my name is Joya Cannell, and not only am I Vice Chair of CTGBC, but I am also a Built Ecology Consultant with WSP and one of your moderators today. And as people continue to trickle in, my partner Kai and I we'll get the panel kicked off and would really love to hear from you in the chat. Now, feel free to put in what's your name, what's your organization or school, and your title, and what you're looking forward to getting from this event. And yes, welcome. Just want to let you know that this is a real labor of love for us here at CTGBC. This series was inspired by the desire to more directly fulfill our mission as an organization, which is to accelerate the healthy, sustainable, and just transformation of the built environment in our state by supporting its future workforce. Demystifying career paths and growing professional networks is key to this, and we have a wonderful set of mentors keen to support students and emerging professionals here with us today. And before we get started, I would like to say a few more words to introduce CTGBC. We are a membership group of architects, policy experts, consultants, contractors, builders, educators, and many more committed to transforming the way our towns and cities are designed, constructed, and operated through education, advocacy, and community development within the sustainable building trades. Our students and emerging professionals are really key to us achieving these outcomes. Freshly educated and best practices, we want to make sure that they are encouraged and paving the way for the next generation's commitment of innovation and our commitment to our collective future. We recognize that making those inroads directly with industry is so important for this, which is why we're all here today. And we'll cover some quick housekeeping as well. We're recording this panel and we'll make it available on our website. And in terms of your participation, we welcome you to please use the chat to ask questions or make comments as you think of them. That chat will be monitored, and we'll also have time at the end for Q&A after our moderated questions for panelists. Please raise your hand and we'll be happy to call on you to unmute yourself. And if you're having any tech issues, please be sure to share a chat with Kai or myself, and we can help you out. And we have a number of upcoming events left for members and folks that have signed up for our newsletter. You'll be seeing these coming through the pipeline. But we have another career summit on public and policy on April 19th, also for 30 on Zoom. Remember to sign up on our website for more and follow on social media to receive updates. And we do have an in-person career summit in May, now confirmed for May 10th, when a number of our panelists will be returning for in-person networking. And as always, keep an eye to our calendar on our website for more. There's a lot of great ways to get involved, including joining committees and some really wonderful opportunities for hosting events as well. And all of this would not be possible thanks to our generous sponsors. Assa Abloy has been leading the way for building supply companies in sustainability for a long time now. Their commitment to helping drive industry forward and tackling and reducing greenhouse gas contributions has been quintessential for us and a number of our clients. And Mitsubishi Electric is critical to much of our work as building professionals with their electric HVAC solutions. They really do provide low emissions conditioning and energy and climate friendly options for us that work in sustainability. And finally, don't forget to join us. If you're not a member already, it comes along with a lot of great benefits, including discounted admissions. We are associated with ILFI and have a number of really great opportunities for leadership and showcasing your work. All right, and now we'll start getting into the meat of the presentation. Like I said, Joy Montana Cannell, built ecology consultant at WSP in New York, longtime Connecticut native, love my state and love really working with my community on making it even better and more sustainable. And with that, I will kick it off to my co-moderator, Kai. Thank you, Kai.
Thanks, Julia. That's great. Welcome, everybody. Again, my name is Kai Starn. I chair the Connecticut Green Building Council. I also work at the employee-owned firm Stephen Winter Associates as a senior sustainability consultant. I specialize in green programs. If you've heard of it, we've probably done it. Also live in Bridgeport, Connecticut. I love it here, and I'm excited to be here with you to hear from our panel about their professional journey, how they got to where they are today, and to share their insights about the careers for today and tomorrow. Next slide, please. So with that, we're fortunate to have a number of subject matter experts here today. They're going to share what they know, which is a whole heck of a lot. So we will be hearing from them in their first name alphabetical order. They're going to tell us more about themselves and just give a 5-minute intro, which will be followed by moderated questions and your questions. So today we are joined by Elise, Cameron, Christina, Dan, and Ellie. And with that, I will pass it over to Elise. Take it away, Elise.
Great. Thanks, Kai. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. My name is Elise Lembo-Bazzelli. I am an associate director at the Connecticut Green Bank. I'm also a board member at the Connecticut Green Building Council. This is now my 4th year, I think. I'm on my 2nd term at the Green Building Council, which has been really great. So just wanted to give you a quick kind of snapshot of my journey. So going way back to my high school years, I always kind of dreamed of becoming an architect. That was really what I wanted to do for most of my young adult life. Started to apply for colleges and ultimately realized that I kind of didn't want to do that. Actually, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So I decided to go to UConn, which was one of the greatest decisions I made. Loved being at the Storrs campus. And really had a good opportunity to explore a lot of different mediums. I took a lot of intro classes, many different intro classes for the first 2 years that I was there. I was undecided really until I took an environmental science class. Right around the same time, this is now my 2nd semester of sophomore year. Right around the same time, I joined the student group EcoHusky on campus. And just started to kind of get into the sustainability of our campus, recycling, different things that we could do as students to help make our campus better. And that was really kind of what launched me into my interest in sustainability and the environment in general. I ended up doing a bachelor's of science program with natural resources with a concentration in environmental conservation. So that's what my degree is. My undergraduate degree is from UConn. So when I graduated from UConn, it was 2009, which if any of you remember that, we were in a little bit of a slump. So I ended up doing some work kind of where I could find it right after college. But I kept looking for something in the energy or environmental space. And I ended up working with a residential solar PV installation company doing sales, which I quickly realized was not my thing. I'm not a great salesperson, but I did learn very quickly that I liked the education part, teaching people about solar energy, about energy efficiency, and what that could mean for them and for their home, and also for the environment. So through working for that company, I was introduced to the Connecticut Green Bank. The Green Bank offered incentives. So learned a little bit about incentives for solar and what the Green Bank did, and became very interested in working there. So eventually in 2014, I was able to apply and join the Green Bank. Went into the Green Bank with no finance background at all. And you can imagine we have bank in our name. So learning clean energy finance was pretty important. So that was something that I learned as I went. There were lots of really great people, and still are, at the Green Bank that were willing to kind of help me learn. And I wanted to learn. So that was really important. So that's what I do now. I'm still at the Green Bank, and I work on a particular financing program for commercial properties to do clean energy upgrades, and kind of finding my place there, working with contractors and really kind of focusing on the education piece of our programs and helping building owners and other stakeholders kind of work through the process. A few years ago now, it would be 2017, excuse me, I decided that I was going to go back to school, and I found a Master's of Sustainable Design program at the University of Florida. It was a virtual experience, which was very interesting. It was a full year program, really intense, but it was well worth it. And this is kind of where that story of me wanting to be an architect in high school comes back around. I was able to kind of pair my current experiences with clean energy finance, policy, and pair that with the kind of love that I had for buildings and building and design. So I was able to complete this program, which was very insightful, and I think has certainly helped me further my career at the Green Bank, both with understanding more about the buildings themselves and the construction, and also just kind of understanding design. And then, as I mentioned, I joined the Green Building Council about 4 years ago now as a board member, first time on a board. So that was also a really, really great experience, learning about nonprofits, and kind of understanding that and growing my network. Go to the next slide, and then I will pass it along. Just talk for another 30 seconds here. So while I was doing my, just something really, really quick, while I was doing my my master's with the University of Florida, we had the opportunity to visit the Netherlands and Singapore. Both countries have some really great design opportunities and options and areas of expertise for different reasons. Singapore, as you can see in the middle picture there, it's tropical. So they have a lot of issues with buildings and designing for humidity and heat and rain and different things along those lines. So helping the city-state to be more walkable and comfortable. And then, of course, the Netherlands, which I think we all know is pretty famous for mostly being below sea level, have a lot of issues with water integration, and how they're working with water and learning to live with it as opposed to trying to keep it out. So some really interesting things to learn in other parts of the country. And then the last picture here is just kind of what's next. So been working on clean energy for a long time, but we're now embarking on a new option that will be available for the program that I work on for resilience measures. So being able to finance resilience measures for commercial properties as well. So I'm leading on that project, and I'm really excited to kind of dig into how we write those guidelines and how we help folks beyond clean energy in the state. So thanks.
Thanks so much, Elise. Great story. All right, we'll just keep on rolling. Hand it over to Cameron next. Over to you. Thanks.
Thanks, Kai. And thanks, Elise. It was really wonderful to hear a little bit more about your story and your journey. So welcome to everybody who's joining. My name is Cameron Kritikos, and I currently serve as the Civilian Climate Corps intern at Block Power. And I'm also a graduate student at Yale University. So if you're unfamiliar, Block Power is a Brooklyn-based climate tech company that's focusing on building decarbonization. And we use proprietary technology to analyze, finance, and upgrade homes with the latest technology in terms of energy efficiency and electric technology and appliances. You may know us most for the work that we do with heat pumps. So the company was founded almost 10 years ago, back in 2014. And in those almost 10 years, we've upgraded 5,000 buildings, mostly in New York City, and are actively expanding that work and looking to bring building electrification to Ithaca, New York, Menlo Park in the Bay Area, and a handful of other cities around the country. And so we were able to do this because we offer leases with low flat monthly payments for no money down. And we mostly work in low to moderate income communities. And so there's this really meaningful intersection, both of environmental justice and building electrification, that's at the center of the work that we do. Next slide, please. And so my work in particular is actually on the workforce development side of things. On top of electrifying buildings and installing heat pumps, we have a very robust workforce development program that kicked off in New York City back in 2021 at the height of the pandemic. And similarly to our electrification work, this workforce development program is rapidly expanding to other cities. This is what I'm most proud of in the work that I do with Block Power. We work primarily with unemployed and underemployed individuals, the overwhelming majority of whom are criminal justice involved in some capacity. And for 12 weeks of training, they receive $20 an hour, which removes the financial barrier that is so oftentimes an impediment to ensuring that workforce development outcomes are equitable. And we're training individuals in New York City and other places to install solar, to install heat pumps, EV charging stations, all the kinds of jobs that are important for the future of building electrification. Block Power is trying to be on the cutting edge. So I just want to turn to my own journey for a moment, if we can go forward in the next slide. My journey has been, I think, unconventional is a nice way to put it, but I'm well aware that the skills that I've acquired have provided me with a very wide-ranging toolkit. So I, like many others, was desperately searching for a job after I graduated with my bachelor's degree, and I decided to do a year of service. That was with AmeriCorps Vista. If you're unfamiliar, it's essentially the domestic version of the Peace Corps, where I did a lot of video editing and grant writing, not skills that I use in my current job, but were really important for my personal and professional development. Later, I moved to Michigan, and I worked with a religious organization doing climate advocacy and organizing work with synagogues, churches, mosques, and temples around climate issues in the state of Michigan, which was incredibly rewarding to see the intersection of these natural organized bodies of people who were seeking the common good of their neighbors. That led me to pursue this graduate degree program that I am just 5 weeks from finishing, which is really exciting. And in the midst of all that, I've had an opportunity to work with the city planning department in New Haven, Connecticut, and do a handful of other things, which ultimately led me to Block Power and the exciting work that I get to do now. So I'll just leave it there, and I'll pass it off to who's ever next.
Great. Thanks so much, Cameron. Thanks for sharing. All right, we'll go right ahead. Pass it over to Christina.
Thanks, Kai. Hey, everybody. My name is Christina McPike. I'm the Director of Energy and Sustainability at Wind Companies. Wind is 51-year-old. It was really fun last year to say 50. 51-year-old family founded and operated real estate developer and property manager. We are based in Boston. I'm based in New York City, but have been with the company for 10 years. I started there in 2013. Just really high level, Wynn Companies owns about 15,000 low and moderate income apartments in the mid-Atlantic and Northeast regions of the United States. And we're also a really large landlord. So we are the property manager for a lot of other owners, and manage about another 100,000 apartments in 23 states and Washington, DC, spread really all across the country. And our portfolio is really diverse. So we have high-rise towers and low-rise townhouse style buildings and sort of everything in between, built in the 1850s, 1950s, and under construction now. We are a developer, as I said, so we have a pipeline of acquisition rehab projects, of historic adaptive reuse projects, and ground up new construction. And I oversee everything and anything that has to do with sustainability for that portfolio. But sort of taking a step back to talk about my career journey, I went to Boston College. I'm a native of a small river town in Southern Illinois near St. Louis, but 5.5 hours south of Chicago. Moved to Boston, sort of culture shocked experience there, but really enjoyed being in New England. It was this sort of fantastical place growing up in the Midwest to be near mountains and oceans. And I went with the ambition to study the natural sciences. So I was a biology major. And every summer during college, I would go home and drive about an hour and a half west into the woods of Missouri, where I was tracking down frogs and studying pond ecology and loving every day of that intensely. I did that through a program with Washington University in St. Louis. But I couldn't really figure out how to make a career of that. I didn't really see myself in the lab and as a researcher, despite admiring the heck out of the PhD and postdoc students who I was basically working for and pulling off ticks and leeches on a daily basis for. So I tried to think of ways that I could take my interest in ecology and apply it in a more in a different way, basically. And a professor at Boston College gave me a book about urban ecology, and I read it a couple of times and was just obsessed with this intersection of the natural environment and cities and people and businesses and the places where we live and work. So in senior year of college, I in 2011, I applied for grad school and went to, as part of the very first cohort, urban and regional policy program at Northeastern University in Boston. It was a program that Dukakis and a few of his colleagues were just getting off the ground and honestly kind of experimenting with. And so I was one of their guinea pigs of about 20 students, sort of making up the program as the professors went along, but with really incredible people. Stephanie Pollock being, sort of right-hand woman to the Secretary of Transportation today, and got a really sort of broad education in policy and planning, and in this incredible setting that is Northeastern, which coming out of BC, I was really sort of surprised and excited to get a firsthand experience with the co-op program at Northeastern. So Northeastern's very well integrated with the city of Boston, business community, and even graduate students have to do co-ops or internships. So I interned at Northeast Energy Efficiency Partnership. I interned at the Conservation Law Foundation. And then I interned at Wynn Companies during my 2.5 years at Northeastern. And that internship at Wynn 10 years ago has brought me to where I am today, still at Wynn. I think a sort of rarity of millennials being 10 years in a single career. But it's a massive job, and it's one that's allowed me to grow and wear different hats. I started really in crawl spaces and boiler rooms and toilet tanks. And now I'm still in all three of those places, but I get to work on just really amazing high impact projects. I've included a few images here. As I mentioned, we do historic adaptive reuse projects. So we're doing all electric, near passive house certified historic preservation work. I'm working regularly with the National Park Service on the policy side as it pertains to doing projects like that. The middle image here is an occupied all electric deep energy retrofit of a public housing community that's part of a large RAD conversion. So I get to really sort of get involved in the weeds on construction, but as well as very complicated capital transactions that go into doing low-income housing tax credit deals. And then the graphic there on the left shows just a snapshot of the 7,000 apartments that Wind manages in the city of Boston against the city's building energy performance standard, i.e. a pipeline of deep energy retrofits that we are going to have to do over the next 5 to 10 years at just our portfolio. So I think kind of a convoluted journey from frogs to buildings, but it's been very fun and look forward to getting into the weeds in the Q&A.
Fabulous. Thanks, Christina. All right, we'll just keep it going. Over to you, Dan.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Kai and Joya, for allowing me to be part of the Finance and Development Showcase. And also, hi, everyone. I'm Dan Montanaro, the Development Director for Dakota Partners, and I'm responsible for overseeing new affordable housing developments for Dakota in Connecticut and in Rhode Island. And I'm here today to lend some insights about the development industry for anyone thinking of coming into this field, and also explain a little bit about my career path in hopes that it might be helpful for anyone just starting out or maybe looking to make a switch. So I'll go through where I am today, and then of course how I got here. And just first off, for anyone who may not be familiar with Dakota Partners, it's a company that was founded in 2006 as a Massachusetts-based real estate developer and builder. Its focus is acquisition and development of new communities from the ground up. The company has brought around 4,000 units to market across New York, New England, and the Mid-Atlantic. And its mission is to build, of course, housing that matters. And that is housing that matters to its residents, housing that matters to the community and to the environment. So all of that while fulfilling a critical void in the housing markets that we work in. And I've included here a sample, or a few sample photos of apartment communities that Dakota is working to bring online as we speak, just to give a sense of what we do. These are projects that are all highly sustainable, but also transformative for the locations that they're in. So my role at Dakota is to oversee the full life cycle of new projects. These are large scale developments consisting anywhere from, it could be 35, it could be 75, it could be 100 plus apartments. And I get to take the lead and bring those projects all the way through the process from local approvals through the design phase, through financing, through construction, all the way to lease up. And there are textbooks that are hundreds of pages long, so sort of summarizing all of those aspects and the synergies around each of them, but I'll keep it somewhat brief here. And just kind of talk about the main parts of my job, which I've kind of narrowed it down to 3. And the first one is design. The design phase involves overseeing professionals to plan out attractive and high quality living communities. And we do that in such a way that we're making decisions about the look and feel and the operations with respect to the project's budget. The second main aspect of my job is the financing. So affordable housing projects have very complex financing structures like no other in the sector, right, involving low-income housing tax credits and a variety of other competitive funding sources. And I'm constantly building out and tweaking financial models while working very closely with banks and investors to raise capital so that we can build those projects. And this is really where the rubber meets the road in terms of breaking down the returns for either developers or for investors and understanding financial feasibility. And the last main part of, I would say, what I do is the construction aspect. And this is one of the fun parts because you get to see the project start to come to life before your eyes. But it's also, it can also be intensive at times due to unknown circumstances. And really during this stage, time is of the essence more than ever. So it does take quite a bit of focus and problem solving, but it is exciting. And so sort of, I think as you can see, the picture that I'm painting is that development is really a culmination of three main sectors being design, finance, and construction. And I see that as a major benefit to anyone wanting to sort of round out their career, whether you're coming in at an entry level or even if you have some experience under your belt already. And if we could advance to the next slide, please. Great, thank you. And so how did I get here? I'm going to kind of start backwards, going left to right. I started my career on the construction side of the table, earning a bachelor's in construction management from Roger Williams University. And Roger Williams has, I would say, an amazing CM program. It's essentially 4 years of business and engineering. And I would add that I think schools teach fundamentals and theory, while a lot of the know-how is going to really come from being on the job. And my first job was with Viking Construction. They're a well-known general contractor in the state of Connecticut, as some of you may know. And I was 21. It was 2009, and I think similar to Elise said, that was a tough time in the job market. You know, coming off the crash of 2008. So, but I was grateful to have landed a job, and it was gratifying. So I was 21. I was a project manager in an assistive role, and I got to see projects sort of unfold before my eyes, and I enjoyed having a hand in the scheduling and writing contracts and doing the estimating. From then, I made a switch and I jumped into development of affordable housing in 2013 because seeing job sites transform was fun, but I felt like I wanted to understand the business decisions behind how and why things were getting built. So not listed here, but really a pivotal point in my career was when I began working for a company called JHM Financial Group. And JHM develops, owns, manages multifamily housing. And this is where I learned the why, which is that there's a severe lack of quality, affordable housing in the country. And I also learned the how, which was my introduction to financing. I had not a finance background at all before that. So I got to learn the ropes and eventually worked my way up to having some more responsibility there. And while I was with JHM, I decided I wanted to expand my knowledge of development and finance in general. So I applied and started earning a master's in real estate development and finance from Georgetown University while working full time. And that gave me a chance to learn financing structures that exist outside of the affordable housing market space. So it gave me a 360-degree perspective and a lot of exposure to parts of development that I wouldn't have come across yet. And so I know I got a lot out of that program, and that's one here that I would recommend. And then sometime during school, I felt like I was ready to take on more responsibility and oversee all aspects of development. And that's when I transitioned here to Dakota Partners, where I've been working since 2001. And today I oversee a small team that manages about 5 projects in the Northeast that are in different stages of development. And it's certainly a team effort. And I would just wrap up my portion of this presentation and say that development is a multifaceted career that is robust enough to be something to just get your feet wet if you want, but also make it sort of a lifelong passion. And just know that if you're just getting started, you certainly don't need to be locked into one path: design, finance, construction. You can have it all. And I believe that Joy and Kai have made my email address available to anyone who's attending here. And I would urge anyone, if you have questions about the field, to please reach out, and I'll do my best to get back to you and help you out any way that I could. So with that, thank you.
Great, thanks, Dan, for that warm invitation and background on your career. Thanks to all the presenters for sharing. So we'll begin the Q&A portion of the program. Participants can.
Sorry, one more.
Oh,
we've got
so
Ellie.
sorry, Ellie. I jumped the gun.
No worries, no
My
worries.
bad.
I can be quick.
No,
But yeah,
no, it's over to you. Good time.
thank you, Kai, and also Joya for inviting me to participate. It's been just great hearing everyone's stories, and definitely, I think, a lot of overlap in my own journey and thought process as I've explored different opportunities to make an impact. So hello, everyone. Ellie Brunsdale. I work at Greenbacker Capital, which is an investor in sustainable infrastructure with a focus on energy transition. In addition to being a capital provider and investor, we are an owner-operator of all of the assets that we invest in. And in the energy space, it's known as a IPP, independent power producer. My role on the investment team is evaluating what projects to invest in and pricing, and then leading negotiations with developers to buy those assets that are at various stages of development, from already being operating to start of construction to 1 to 2 years pre-construction with some site control and interconnection. So it's really a wide range of projects that I'm able to get exposure to. In addition to working on the acquisitions of those assets and valuations, I also work on the financings of those projects. So in addition to Greenbacker capital that we're investing, project equity, I also work to raise third-party capital from tax equity and debt to overall to fill out the capital stack of a project. And then finally, I think the last bucket I would say is I work very closely with our construction teams and operations teams on the actual execution of building a project. So which really varies. That can mean everything from working closely on procuring modules, solar panels for our projects, to thinking about site optimization and how we're designing the site to optimize production over the long term. So get to work with a very diverse team of engineers in addition to finance people and also developers. To take a step back on my journey to this role, before joining Greenbacker, I worked at D.E. Shaw Renewable Investments, which is very similar, also an investor and owner operator of primarily solar, wind, and storage. In that role, I focused on utility scale assets, whereas in my current role at Greenbacker, I look both at utility scale, but also C&I, commercial and industrial projects, in addition to community solar. And before D.E. Shaw, I was a graduate student, also at Yale. I spent 7 years in New Haven. New Haven feels like a second home to me. I first went to New Haven as an undergrad, where I studied economics and environmental studies at Yale College. And then I went back for grad school and did the dual MBA and Masters of Environmental Management, which really set me up and gave me the foundation to moving into impact investing and finding a role where I was able to pursue my passion for environmental impact, while also kind of figuring out the way I was going to do that, which ended up being through capital markets. And so yeah, it's been an incredible career journey. Of course, lots of other twists and turns along the way. I think one thing I will add is going into college. I'm from Colorado. Was raised by environmentalists and ended up having this strong passion and roots from the beginning. And so for me, going into college, it was kind of figuring out what did I want to pair that environmental passion with? Like, what was the tool in society? How was I going to have that impact? And I think my key message is there's so many different ways to have an impact, whether that's through policy, whether that's through engineering, actually building the systems, or whether that's through being an enabler, which I kind of view financiers are, in terms of figuring out how to bring different pieces together and make a project happen. I think that the key is finding work that makes you feel alive and that you feel like enables you to share your gifts with the world. And it's a constant question, and it's, have I figured it out 100%? No, but it's I think it's really the goal is to find work worth doing, to feel like you're making progress and work worth doing, and working with people who make you feel, who bring out the best in you, I think is really all you can hope for in a career. Maybe with that, I'll pause, but happy to take any questions and dive into more details.
Thank you so much. You're a perfect rounding out for everyone. Really, we've heard such great, inspiring stories. Everyone has come to this space from different places, different sources, whether it's grounded in care for the environment, like Ellie and Christina, or people, Dan, and just we're all wonderfully connected. I think this is great. And to the folks on the call, the participants, please do feel free to use the chat for any questions. We'll start with our moderated ones, which are a little bit more focused on new careers or career transitions, but after everyone's incredibly inspiring stories and like very crystallized and clear descriptions of some of the interesting work that you do and how you've overcome challenges to better deliver projects both for people and planet. I would love to get into some nitty gritty around what you do specifically as well, but we'll start with some of those career tools. So I would love to hear from folks what examples you might have in terms of when you've identified opportunities for excelling your career in early stages. I think a couple of folks have brought that up. I actually might direct it to Christina first, as you've really grown your career in one particular company. Would love to hear how you identified those opportunities to try new things and move on up and grow your capacities as a person at Wing Companies.
Yeah, it's a good question. I definitely, I came in with this, obviously a couple of internships under my belt, which is helpful, but I spent the first few years at Win just trying to learn everything I possibly could from all of the smart people around me. Something I love about my job is that, being similar to Dan and maybe everybody else, we get to work with architects and engineers and general contractors and subcontractors. And I was just a sponge trying to figure out which sort of path or niche within the very broad sustainability umbrella maybe was exciting to me, and where I saw the need. I kind of joke that I put myself out of a job. So I basically spent the first 3 or 4 years retrofitting the heck out of every building I could get into. And I did that, right? So, I went into every building that Win owns and retrofitted it once or twice, meaning I was chasing grant funding and utility incentives and project managing weatherization upgrades and LED retrofits and heating system replacements, CHP installations. I've built 3 megawatts of solar PV. I've gotten 3 or 4 different large grants from the Department of Energy. And I was just sort of keeping myself super busy. And most of that was kind of opportunistic. And I was seeing a shift where some policy and code was kind of catching up with us. And I couldn't just sort of pursue the projects that I was excited about. It was becoming sort of portfolio wide and needed to be a little bit more strategic. So in some ways, I was able to use that just sort of reality that the carrots were becoming the sticks to sort of advance my career. And in addition to that, Win was transitioning kind of naturally following 08 from acquisition rehabs into more new construction and into more new markets. So we're building in states we've never built in before. We're building in states and regions where we didn't even manage before. And so there's sort of a steep learning curve there as we were responding to more and more aggressive financing applications, seeing higher and higher expectations from lenders and state housing finance agencies or authorities around our high performance goals, things like that. So I was learning more and more and becoming kind of an expert in my field as the industry was also kind of catching up to where WIN was leading. And there was honestly a larger and a greater need internally at the company that allowed me to sort of advance the position itself from the boiler room to the kind of developer's desk and table of experts that Dan mentioned before.
Thank you. That's really fascinating. And I think even the fact that as you've discussed, being opportunistic and being active early on really can have a greater impact than you necessarily know, just following your passions, right? And discovering what fits, discovering what doesn't, and giving yourself the opportunity to work on great and impactful projects. We also have a ton of questions in the chat, which is really exciting. And I think it looks like Elise, there's one for you, although I think that this could be interesting to broaden and apply to Cameron as well. Sort of working in that in-between space of public-private, like the Connecticut Green Bank does, but also Cameron was actually originally going to be on our like public service and policy panel. So with his expertise, sort of walking that line between public-private services, at least, I think it would be really great to discuss with both of you that relationship between the public and private sector. What are some interesting tools or tips that you have in terms of the intersection? How can they support each other? And if you have any particularly interesting examples, whether it's related to funding, related to grants, related to tax incentives, please share. Get as nitty-gritty
Yeah,
as you like.
I can jump in. I have an example that comes to mind immediately with Block Power and our workforce development program. So believe it or not, it didn't just fall out of the sky into our laps. It came from this really concerted effort by the mayor's office in New York City, as I mentioned, in 2021, was seeing a pretty sizable uptick in crime in particular neighborhoods in New York. At the same time, there were a lot of individuals who were suffering economic hardship because of being, losing their jobs. All the while that this is happening, New York City has already set pretty ambitious climate goals. And so the mayor's office at that time, in a manner that is unbeknownst to me, learned of Block Power and ultimately gave Block Power $35 million to start this workforce development program that would pay a living wage. It would give individuals who are unemployed, underemployed, a place to be and a purpose, and it would contribute to the city's climate goals, including decarbonization and electrification. So that to me is a perfect example of using public funds and the public sense of like the greater good and all of the tools that local government has to achieve its goals with all the efficiencies of the private sector. That to me is a slam dunk opportunity, or at least an example for what these kind of partnerships could look like and ultimately achieve.
Thank you so much. That's a really great example. And I would like to pass the question along to Elise as well. Would love to hear your thoughts from the perspective of a sort of pseudo public-private.
Yeah, I think, and just to answer Evan's second question here in terms of exposure, either on the public or the private side, I've only worked on the public side, although we have many private capital investors that work in our program, so I've got that kind of experience from the outside looking into it. But I don't know if I have an opinion in terms of which might be better, but just to kind of echo what Cameron was saying and what I wrote in the chat here, that the partnership between public and private investment, I think, is really important, and it works really well in Connecticut with the Connecticut Green Bank, as I think some of you may know. The Connecticut Green Bank was the first green bank in the nation. Yeah, and we Evan knows, and we are also kind of the model for the National Green Bank as well. So creating programs and using the public dollars that we get from the efficiency fund and from different sources to attract that private capital investment into the market, I think is the key. And of course, designing programs and running programs like we do at the Green Bank that are attractive and that can kind of jumpstart the market without competing too much in the market, I think is also really important. So striking that balance and figuring out what it is. And of course, designing programs that not only folks want to fund, but that the building owners or homeowners or contractors want to participate in as well. That's kind of the perfect storm of creating these programs and giving folks access to clean energy or resilience or sustainability, just to make their buildings or homes or lives better is the key there.
Just out of curiosity, Elise, what makes a program attractive? What are some key elements, like ease, full wraparound? Like I think of like Cameron's example, like probably full wraparound services for workforce development. Is there something sort of similar or akin for financing?
Yes, ease is certainly a big thing. And even when you have a more complicated program, like the program that we offer for commercial properties, the PACE program, Property Assessed Clean Energy, it's not the simplest, but being able to have folks that can help all of the different players move through the process seamlessly and answer questions and be available, I think goes a really long way. We've done, in our program in Connecticut, we've done almost coming up on 400 projects in the last 10 years. So, really making, even if it's not simple, making it simple to understand, I think is really the key for it. Attractive things like low interest rates, those types of things are of course going to be something that is going to be of interest to property owners and folks that are looking to use financing. But really just, we're finding that a lot of folks are coming to us for financing because they don't have options elsewhere. A lot, we help a lot of nonprofits do projects that maybe can't get a loan someplace else to do, a solar PV project or upgrade their windows. Maybe they just, they can't get there with a traditional bank. So being able to offer, making the projects more accessible, I think is also another key aspect of a successful program.
Thank you. That's very, very helpful. At least from my end, it's really good to hear those, the language that you usually hear every day, like accessible, and have it be translated for folks that are just entering. And then with 5 minutes left, I'd like to do one more double-barreled question for Ellie and Dan to bring you guys in, and to keep it pretty broad and let you guys fill in where you like. I would love to hear about either long-running challenges that you tend to find in your work, or specific project, a single specific project-based challenge that you've found, and how you've been able to overcome it. We have a question in the chat about supply chain issues, and especially for solar panels, and I'm sure that's something that folks across the board are finding and trying to overcome. But would like to broaden it to.
Great. Well, I can take that one quickly, Joya, since that certainly has been a challenge, if not like the major challenge over the last few years. And, certainly the forced labor concerns, but then also just more broadly, COVID related supply chain disruption was extremely disruptive for the entire industry. And so the way that at Greenbacker and many other places we've been seeking to solve that challenge is supply chain diversification, trying to build relationships with suppliers outside of China, looking elsewhere in the world, but then also now, especially with the passage of the IRA that is providing incentives for procuring domestic equipment, looking at, to the extent to which we can contribute to the build out of domestic manufacturing. So this supply chain is a huge focus for the industry and also a huge opportunity to bring jobs to the US and also have more resilient supply chains that are less exposed to future disruptions like COVID. So that's a great one to bring up. Dan, anything you want to add in terms of just challenges that you see on a day-to-day?
Yeah, I would be happy to elaborate on that. There's no one answer that really addresses that. So there's a number of different solutions. When you're dealing with things like supply chain, which come up every single day in the construction world and on the projects that we're all kind of working with, a creative solution has been working with your lender to approve the ability to try and procure your materials in advance. So allowing you to draw down your funding so that if you're able to secure the certain type of pipe or secure windows, even though you're not ready to install them yet, but they're available, lock them in when possible by ordering them and storing them. Two is you just have to be kind of flexible and be able to find alternatives. You've got to vet alternative materials. You've got to vet alternative suppliers. And yeah, that's in a nutshell kind of how I see developers addressing those types of challenges.
Thank you. Any particular like financing hacks that you managed to get, or is it do you just write in whenever possible to get your construction materials up front?
I think a financing hack is a little bit of negotiation with your lender to make sure that to be able to use their funds to secure materials well in advance of needing them. That's not always the easiest task, especially when you're talking about maybe ordering a couple $1 million worth of materials that are going to be sitting somewhere. Yeah, I think that would be a trick of the trade that I would lend to folks.
Thank you. And then Ellie, sorry, did you go on mute? Did you have one more?
Oh, it's okay. No, I
accident. Okay. Well, that's perfect. It is at time. And actually, before we move on from that, especially the supply chain question, I'm really glad that we've been able to bring this up in a number of calls so far, but my team at WSP and a number of others have really been utilizing resources from Design for Freedom, which is a nonprofit movement with leaders from the AEC industry who are taking steps to identify and vet construction products through the supply chain for forced labor. And it really is it's a partnership with human rights organizations like labor organizations, governments and people that are working in the AEC industry. So I highly recommend checking out the Design for Freedom website in terms of upfronting, where say there isn't a lot of transparency yet into whether or not your supply chain is going to be disrupted from human rights violations. But thank you for your time. And to reiterate, everyone feel free to shoot our folks an email. Feel free to shoot Kai or myself an email. We'd be happy to hear from you if you have any further questions. I do see we have some lingering in the chat, so apologies. But we will have this available on our website. As a reminder, we'll shoot you an email with the PDF of the slides and the location of the video when it's all up. And with that, thank you so much to our presenters for your generously offering your time. It's been incredibly inspiring in this short hour. I am just in awe of all of the work that you are all doing. So thank you so much for sharing and for inspiring great work in others.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye now.
Bye, thank you.
Okay, all right, take care. Bye-bye.